Hey, it's Chris, Liege Games. So, emergency stopgap video because clearly I missed two of the biggest players that are coming out this next week on Kickstarter. That is Terraforming Mars, the Ares expedition, as well as Paladins of the West Kingdom, City of Crowns, the expansion for the Paladins base game. These are both going to get a lot of attention and a lot of hype, but let's talk about them and let's make sure they're on everyone's radar in case they weren't already. So, let's talk for a minute. Let me make it up to you. Also, as a side note for just a half second, about the channel in general, I'm thinking that I am eventually going to open up a Discord channel. I like the YouTube comments, but it's just not personal, it's not long lasting, it's not as interactive as it could be. So I'm going to start my own Discord channel at some point down the line, probably after we hit 1,000 subs. But, just more as an FYI, if you're interested, let me know how you feel about that too in the comments. Anyway, let's talk about these two games. So let's talk City of Crowns, the Paladins of West Kingdom expansion. Now, this is, as I'm going to assume, you are familiar with Paladins of the West Kingdom in the first place. If you're not familiar with it, it is a very, very well thought of worker placement game by Shem Phillips, set in the medieval era around 900 AD, where you are paladins and you are mustering your forces to defend your lands against invaders. Now, when I say it's well thought of, I mean it's well thought of. As you can look right here, the overall rank on Board Game Geek is 74, and the strategy is 50 with an overall rating of 8.1. So this game has some legs to stand on. What are you going to do for a game that is that well thought of to begin with? Here you can see a little bit of what's going on. There are several new elements in this game, and I'm going to talk about them sort of in a little bit of succession here. There are several different types of new people. There are outsiders, there are townsfolk, there are King's Order cards, which are personal objectives that each person gets, and then there's favor cards. There are also two additions to the board, a personal board and a common board. Here you can see the addition to the common board on the right side. You have two additional actions over here that you can do, muster and negotiate. You also have the ability as an additional action to enlist, to try and get more nobles to your cause. And that is essentially what this expansion gives as sort of the overview of it in general. There are also going to be increases to the number of paladins that you're drawing in the deck total. So instead of drawing 3 per turn, you're going to be drawing 4 per turn. There are also additional bonus slots on your personal board that allow for more opportunities to attack or convert. Here you can see some of the various new paladin, new outsider, new townsfolk. Here is what it comes down to. Is this game good enough by itself? Is this game needing an expansion? Does this expansion add that much more to the base game to take it to the next level? Sort of like, do you need an expansion for Champions of Midgard or Lords of Waterdeep, where the argument absolutely tends to be overwhelmingly yes. It makes the game that much better. Now, on the other side, if you take a game like Isle of Skye, you can make an argument that one of the expansions makes it just too complex and makes it too different than what the original design is intended for, while one of the other expansions does what it should do. Where is this going to fall? How do people feel? Well, there's 2 early reactions on the website already. There's one review here, and it's overwhelmingly positive. Also, Dice Tower's Stella has a short and sweet on there with paid promotion, but she says at the end of the video that she's not going to play the base game without the expansion now. So take that for what you will. Now, the question is, again, how much of this do you need? How much of a good thing do you need? What is the price point going to be? I think the problem with, I think it was Viscounts, that was their latest game that I looked at, and I think a lot of the complaints were there wasn't necessarily enough exclusivity to warrant a need to back on the Kickstarter versus picking it up at retail later, especially even with the expansion and some of the shipping costs, especially in the foreign market. So I'm not sure if this is going to mimic that or if they're going to do some refiguring of that to make it more appealing for people to back it during the Kickstarter campaign. Ultimately, though, I think based on initial impressions, this is well outside of my worker depth. So I can't give you much more analysis on that side of things, but this is a very, very well thought of game, and Shem has a very, very good reputation for this sort of thing, so I can't imagine that it's probably going to go sideways, and that it's probably going to be just a very, very solid addition, and the question is just whether or not you want it and how well it's priced to begin with. So it's going to be in the couple $100,000 range after it launches, even with all the competition that it is going up against. Okay, so we've covered that. Now let's talk a little bit about Terraforming Mars, the Ares Expedition. What do we know about it? It's supposed to have about 208 cards. It's taking the same mechanisms that the original Terraforming Mars had and trying to make it more into a card game that allegedly, supposedly, takes about half the time to play. And I don't know if you're looking at that as a positive or negative, like, hey, I need more Terraforming Mars, or I need something to make Terraforming Mars obsolete, or different, or even the same but shorter, but that's essentially what they're going for. Now, the comparisons out there based on the previews that are already circulating is that it's sort of like a different version of Race for the Galaxy, if you're familiar with Race for the Galaxy, because it's been around for like 20 or 30 years. Now, I think the big question, though, is how is it going to be changed? They compare it to Race for the Galaxy because there's a secret action sort of mission selection, and if nobody chooses it, then nobody gets to do it. Now, the other side of things is this actually going to be streamlined in the sense that it's taking out some of the fluff that you maybe can get away with in a game like Terraforming Mars, which is a lot longer? Or does it actually mean that it's just going to be simplified? Some people are all for the streamlined, some people might be for the simplified, but there's definitely a dichotomy between those two groups as well in terms of what people want. Now, Man vs. Meeple gives a nice overview of sort of what to expect, and here you can see a typical example of each of the types of different cards that you may see. And they've already sort of explained a little bit of the iconography. They've got the tags on the side, the cost in the upper left-hand corner, the prerequisite right below the cost, but also some text clarifier of the prerequisite just in case the symbology isn't completely clear right away, the action that is in the lower left-hand corner, as well as the phase in which it's happening. You can see that this is a phase 3 action, and over here the green card is more of a phase 4 action. So already you're seeing some difference. The artwork is much improved. They've also said there's going to be a double-sided play boards already to begin with, because as one of the major criticisms of this game, the base game Terraforming Mars, is that the components do not live up to the actual gameplay. Then he goes on to, and this is where the similarity for Race for the Galaxy comes in, as you can see the 5 phases that look eerily similar to what you're doing in Race for the Galaxy, where you are playing one at the beginning and being able to do that action depending on what you play, depending on what other people play, and how you allocate your cards and resources. Then he goes on to talk about the cards, where if you have the top card or something in that phase, you get to do whatever's in the top part. But only if you play that card do you get to do the bonus action at the bottom. Now, they also go on to talk about some of the other differences but similarities. And here you can see the main board where you're going to be scoring along the outside your terraforming value. You're going to be trying to raise the temperature. You're going to try and increase the oxygen. And then this is the actual terraforming in the center. Now, what happens is you don't actually add anything to this board. You just randomly play the ocean tiles down, and then you just flip them over whenever someone plays an ocean tile, and you get the bonus of whatever is underneath. Then you have your more streamlined player board, which is again different, but also very similar to the base game of Terraforming Mars. Now, one other big difference that they talk about is the energy in general has just been completely removed from the game. And I think one of the other highlights to note is that this section right here and this section right here, we'll see if we can pull it up a little bit bigger, the titanium and the steel, they just offer ongoing discounts, not actual resources during the game. So that is overview of Terraforming Mars Ares Expedition. What is the price point going to be? Is it going to be worthwhile for a card game to pick up on Kickstarter? Is it going to be too expensive for what it is? What is going to be offered to make people pick it up on Kickstarter in the first place versus picking it up at retail? I think that is the big question, even more so than Paladins. I think this is really the make it or break it. And also, how much are you appealing to your fan base and playing to them, but also trying to give a completely new experience as well? Man vs. Meeple says it does exactly that. What's everyone else going to think? I can't speak to it. I am not a big Terraforming Mars person. Frankly speaking, I've never played Terraforming Mars, but I know a lot of you have. There's a reason it's highly ranked, even higher than Paladins. So there you go. What do you think? Okay. I apologize for missing these two, but I thought it was worthwhile enough, and there's enough popularity of these two that putting out another video, even a short one like this, is well worth it. So thank you for bearing with me. Thank you for checking out. If either of these appeal to you, like I said, they're both launching on the 16th, and they're going to blow up number-wise, and it's just going to see how much money gets spread around on Kickstarter this week, because there's already 2 or 3 from the other video that I am much more interested in the first place. So, as always, thanks for watching. Stay classy out there. Got a couple things coming up for you this week. Have a good time.